and welcome to Community Insight Broadcast, a ministry of Churches Outreach Network. I'm your host, Denisha Harris, and I'm very happy to be here today with our very special guest. Our guest is Miss Sandy Rhodes. She's with the Center for Family Violence Prevention, and she is here as a satellite office out of Martin County, and we're very happy to have her here to talk a little bit about what she does with the Center for Family Violence Prevention and how she is impacting the community and impacting lives. Ms.
Thank you
Rhodes, thank you
so
so much for
much.
joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm excited to be here because one of our most difficult jobs is to inform the public and to have them understand exactly what domestic violence is. It's very difficult, and we're excited to be making this announcement and being in the public where they can learn more about this program. Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. And so we'd like to, of course, give the listening audience just an introduction into your organization and what you do.
Thank you. Actually, our official name is Center for Family Violence Prevention. This organization was started in 1983 here in Pitt County, and in 1986 it became incorporated. So as you can see, they have been active in this community and been very busy helping victims of domestic violence for many years. And we're excited to continue to be here, and as the years have passed, so have the programs that this program offers to the community in this town. I personally am involved with Martin County and Washington County, and we have services over there. We also are able to use all the services that are here in Greenville too. So we don't only just have our services in those two counties. Anything that Greenville offers is also offered to Martin County citizens and Washington County citizens. And the first thing I would like to talk about this morning is I would like to kind of explain a little bit about what domestic violence is.
Absolutely, please do.
We find that many of our clients, some of the abuse that goes on within homes and within domestic violence relationships, people think that those activities are normal, and they are not normal. We would like for people to understand abuse, hitting, fighting, pushing, those things are not normal. And this morning, I would like to share this definition with you as to exactly what domestic violence is. Excuse me. Violence is the willful intimidation, it's physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and control that is perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. It includes physical violence, sexual violence, threats, and emotional or psychological abuse. The frequency and severity of domestic violence varies dramatically. It's difficult for us to realize this morning as we're sitting here talking, every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is assaulted or beaten every 9 seconds. In the United States, an average of 20 people are physically abused by an intimate partner every minute. And this equates to more than 10 million abuse victims annually. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been physically abused by an intimate partner. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 7 men have been severely physically abused by an intimate partner, and also have been stalked, or stalking cases causes the target to fear he or she or someone close to him will be harmed. There's much fear that is associated with abuse. Even when the person doesn't really physically abuse them, if they are physically, they're emotionally abused or psychologically abused, those scars last a long time. That is really sometimes more difficult to work with than physical abuse. The bruises on the body, they will go away, but those bruises on the emotional and on the mind, they stay a long time, and they reoccur so often. And one of the things that we find about abuse is it is very cyclic. Many people do not understand this. There are 3 basic phases to domestic violence. We have the tension building phase, the acute explosion phase, and the honeymoon phase. Now, the tension building is when things begin to go wrong, when one of the other partners begins to be upset about something and they can't deal with it in a manner where they can resolve or have solutions, and it just builds and gets worse and worse. So then the people, eventually, if it builds to a level, there becomes an acute explosion. It could be anything from pushing, hitting, choking, rape, anything that is abusive and harmful to the other partner. Then when that explosion happens, for example, if they hit them and beat them, after it happens, sometimes then they begin to get worried about what's going to happen to them. Or is it going to be reported? Are they going to go to jail? What's going to happen? So all of a sudden, they become nice again. And this is what we call the honeymoon phase. Now, I like to explain this to people, that there's one thing we all know about a honeymoon. If you've ever been on one, what do they always do?
They end.
They end. Exactly. So if you've been on a honeymoon, you know that too, that honeymoons end. And so does the honeymoon, and the domestic violence scene does the same thing. And so once he sends her flowers, he may take her out to dinner. They may have a rebonding session where things seem fine. And the woman is so eager, and I'm saying woman because it's mostly women, about 85% of the victims are women. So she's so ready to try to make the marriage work for all sorts of reasons, everything from making sure the children have a father in the home to financial reasons, because lots of times these women are not working. So she, of course, gets on the bandwagon again, says she's willing to make it work, and they try to make things work. And then, depending on the cycle of the perpetrator, it occurs again. And sometimes it seems, oftentimes, as the cycles repeat, they get worse. And that's when it gets scary, because people can seriously be harmed when you stop to think that over 48 women last year were murdered in the state of North Carolina alone. And that is down somewhat. I have known some years were up in the 90s. So it is a very serious problem. And we would like to eradicate it. That's our goal.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's what we would like to do. So remember, it is very cyclic, and a perpetrator or an abuser, a domestic violence abuser, is not born. Those traits are learned. There's never been a baby born that was genetically programmed to be an abuser. They grow up in a situation where they watch it, they see it, and it has been modeled for them by a father, grandfather, aunt, uncle, whomever is raising them. Whoever the person is that's raising the child, they are the ones that the child models. And if he sees or she sees this type of abuse, then that's what they will do when they get grown. And they think it's normal. So that's why they do it. Usually in households where abuse is going on, the little girls will grow up to be victims because that's what they've seen their mother do. They identify with her. And the little boys seem to grow up and become abusers because they've seen their father do that. And oftentimes this behavior can be seen early on in their dating processes, even in high school. In early ages, they can begin to see some results of this domestic violence abuse that they have lived with and have grown up with, which is very sad.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point to bring out at this moment about dating abuse, is that domestic violence can occur in dating relationships. One of the things that has impacted my life personally is that I was in school with Jamie Kimball, who actually was a person in our community or from our community that was actually murdered as a result of domestic violence. For those in Pitt County, Greenville area, we know that her father, Ron Kimball, was the former city manager of this area.
Exactly.
So we both graduated from Rose High School together. I considered us to be friends, associates, and when I heard of her passing and I heard of her murder, it impacted me greatly. And I actually attended the luncheon last year where her parents came back to Greenville and spoke on domestic violence and dating abuse and gave some of the warning signs and some of the realities that anyone can be impacted by this. So we definitely appreciate all that the Center for Family Violence Prevention is doing to get those warning signs out and to help people understand how they can get out of the cycle.
Thank you for sharing that. And that was a fantastic luncheon where the Kimballs came in and spoke. And it was a very sad occasion, but they're doing such a great job speaking. And again, if they can relate the story and save some other people from harm, then they have done a magnificent work. And we're sorry for the loss of their daughter, but they are doing a good job of helping other people. And that's important.
Absolutely.
And you're right. We do need to be aware of what are some of the characteristics of domestic violence. And when we think about the basic different kinds, the emotional and verbal, here you have continuous criticism. They have accusations of sleeping around. These are just a few of the things. Threats to hurt or kill the family. They take away their money. They do not want the person to have a job. They don't want them to be out in public. And they work very hard to isolate their victims because they don't want the victims to tell anybody what they're doing. And so oftentimes they have been isolated from their family. They don't have relationships with anyone. Oftentimes I actually have clients who come in that do not even have access to a telephone, where they are so adamant about keeping them isolated. It's a sad thing. It really is. And they stay in it a long time. This is an interesting fact, I think, that a victim usually leaves the perpetrator approximately on an average of 7 different times before they can leave and stay gone. So it takes a while. The process is not easy. And people say, well, why do they do that? It's so difficult for people who are not in those relationships to understand, because you've got this female who probably has no job, where he won't let her have a job, so she's not financially able to leave. She has no phone, she has no car, she has children probably. And so there's so many factors. That's why agencies like ours who offer a shelter where we can put them up, we have a very nice shelter here in Greenville now, which is, I call it our 4-star shelter, because it's or 5-star hotel. It's very nice, and we have been so fortunate to be able to offer that to our victims and hope that we can continue to offer such a good service. Then the emotional abuse is very serious and severe. Then we have the physical, which is a little easier for people to understand because you can see the bruises or the cuts, or it's unreal what happens, the different things we have seen. In fact, on one occasion, the victim was so injured that the judge in our county, in Martin County, which I thought was great of him, he actually left the courthouse and went to the hospital to hear the case and to sign the court order to keep the perpetrator from coming near the victim. So that's how bad off she was. She could not leave. She was in intensive care. So we wanted to make sure he couldn't come to the hospital to see her. So it can be very serious, life-threatening, as well as it can end in death. So we need to be careful. Our number one concern for our victims is safety. And we make sure they know that at all times, and that we have the police department and sheriff's department who work hand in hand to help us keep our victims safe. Also, then there's sexual abuse, which of course is, that's almost another whole program. We have other avenues we refer them to for that. And then there's economic abuse, which has to do with making sure that in fact, the few women who do get to work, many times those perpetrators will take their money. They're not allowed to spend it or use it for themselves. So it is a very complicated problem in America, and it is a very serious problem. It's a big problem too. When you think about every 9 seconds since you and I have been talking, someone was assaulted or beaten.
I understand, and we're so blessed to have organizations like yours in this county and in surrounding counties. Yes. And God forbid if someone watching were a victim of domestic violence, perhaps you know someone that may be a victim of domestic violence. how can your organization assist them, and how can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can, in our county, I'll speak for Martin County first. We you can call us at 252-809-4290. We also, as I've said, we have, in our office, we provide basically two services, and then the other services we come to Greenville for. We offer domestic violence court advocacy. This is when our advocate goes with the client to fill out the papers, which runs about 10 pages. And then they fill out these papers, and then they go to the judge and step before the judge in the courtroom. The judge hears the case and decides whether or not it is a legitimate case. Usually they do get it, and I can't say always. And then they receive an ex parte, which is a 10-day official paper and document saying that the perpetrator cannot go near them, they cannot email them, text them, in any way communicate, and they have safety from that person. And then during that time, a new court date will be set, because the perpetrator has a right to tell his side of the story too. And so the two come back, and the judge hears the story from both sides, and then he decides, the judge will decide if the victim can or should receive a year-long domestic violence protective order. And of course, usually if they get the first one, they get the second one. That's not always. It just depends on how it is and what the judge hears and what they think. So the judge makes the final decision, but I have found that for the most part they try to err on the side of safety to make sure that our clients are safe and that the perpetrator is not able to get to them. Mm-hmm. And then we also offer counseling, which is very important, because I find that those victims who come in for counseling, they're more likely to reestablish their life, reframe their lives, and start anew. But if they don't come in, it's easy for the perpetrator to talk them back into coming back with them, and then that victim will go down and dismiss the papers, will drop the charges. And so then the domestic violence protective order is no longer active, and that happens quite frequently.
I see.
Yeah. So those are the basic two things, and I have a court advocate in my office, Shelby Claypack. She works very well with the clients. And in Washington County, we have Doretha Garrett, who's been there quite a while and does a really great job for that county. And we offer counseling services in both counties. Of course, Greenville is much more, they have many more workers here. They have a larger staff with different programs. But again, any program they have, we have access to. So that's a good thing. We may have to drive a few miles, but it's difficult to have all those programs in smaller counties. We don't have the monetary means or the background to support it. So we use these programs, and I think we've been very lucky to have Greenville as our, to be a satellite of Greenville. They've been really good.
That's wonderful. So it sounds like this organization is definitely offering a great deal of hope to those victims of domestic violence, dating abuse. Every 9 seconds, you said. That
every 9 seconds.
Someone is a victim of domestic violence.
Amen.
So thank you so much for what you do and for being a part of the solution. And if you would please give us that phone number one more time, and if there is any other way to contact you, let us know.
809-4290, and then they're also, let's see, make sure I've got that. There are also national hotlines that's accessible with for our clients too. Well, I don't have that memorized. Anyway, it's easy to find, and it's on our cards. I'll leave a card, and they can call the national hotline, and they will put you into the local services, because every county is mandated to have an office for victims of domestic violence, and that is why all these outer counties all have one. And whenever something happens and their program, defaults for some reason and falls through, then they have to get somebody else to come in and keep the program going until such time as they can establish themselves.
Very good, very good. Well, we've got a few more minutes. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listening audience, something that they need to know about this issue?
I would like to say, I would like to give them the 24-hour crisis line. Excuse me for not having that handy. 888-278-6666. 6201. Again, the 24-hour crisis line is 888-278-6201. I would like to show them this just briefly because I didn't get to mention it, but the Duluth Center has come up with, quite some time ago, they came up with what they call the power and control wheel, because anytime a person is an abuser, the main thing they want to do is to exert power and control over another person. And these are what we call the power and control wheel. You can go online on the internet and see this wheel. It is excellent. It shows you the exact different things that a perpetrator would do. And if you think somebody is experiencing a problem with abuse, have them look this up and see what they're doing and know that the person, what they're doing. It also has some other really good wheels. We didn't even get to talk about this today, but abuse of children and children who are in abusive relationships. I don't know if you're familiar with a program called ACEs now, Adverse Childhood Experiences. Any child that's in this program here or that is in a household with domestic violence, there are all types of negative problems that exist because of what they're going through. And so please look this up and see what happens and what you can expect children to do. And some of the behaviors that go on in school, they are results of abusive environment. And also in there they have the wheel that says children coping with domestic violence. This is some of the things that they do as they live through it. This wheel is in there. And then how to love and care for your children. That's very important. And all of these, I know I'm being very sketchy because this could take a long time to discuss everything. But I do want people to know it because we have such a love for the children. And what we want to do is if the children can grow up and understand about abuse, and that will help us eradicate it. And that's our ultimate goal, is to inform the publics and raise children who are not victims of domestic violence, and that they are not being trained to become a victim or an abuser. Thank you for letting me stick that in.
Oh, no problem. Yes. Thank you. In just a couple minutes that we have left, I would like to learn a little bit more about you, how long you've been involved with the organization and with this cause.
Thank you so much. I actually am a retired educator. I was a teacher, counselor, and principal and consultant for the state of North Carolina for education, which I dearly loved and I still love. I was with them for 44 years, and I was home for just a little while, tried a couple of things, and it just got too boring, and I saw an announcement in the paper for a counselor, and I applied for the job, and it was over in Greenville with Diana Cooper-Mann, who was the executive director at that time, and she said that she had 2 openings and that I actually qualified for either. I said, well, whichever one you want me to do. And so she hired me as the director at that time for Martin County. But meanwhile, we had a difficult problem with the counselor left, so I got to do both jobs for the same price. So they got a deal. And that's how I came on, and I've been here, I was going to say 2 or 3 years, and I think this is year number 7. And the longer I stay, the better I love it. So I'm excited to have this job, and I'm just thankful that I'm allowed to do it. And I do love my clients, and we work very hard to try to. My main job in Williamson and Martin County is counseling, and then to sort of supervise an overview of both counties, keep things going kind of. But we stay busy, and I'm thankful for it. It's wonderful. It's been great. And I didn't know a lot about, even though I was a counselor in school, it's just not talked about. I never heard anything about this in my counseling program, and I went through 2, a master's degree and a 6-year degree. But at that time, it just wasn't, people weren't talking about it. And today, at least, we're verbal about it. And maybe this way, it was going on, no doubt about it. But people were not discussing it, and there were not big programs to try to eradicate it. And it's difficult to eradicate something, but we can try.
Absolutely.
We can educate the people to understand just how serious it is and how painful it is for those who go through it.
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, it's time for us to talk about it. It's time for us to bring to bear and bring to light something that has been going on for a very long time, and something that we need to work together as a community to help eradicate and to help eliminate. so that we can stop raising victims, stop raising perpetrators, and help those who are victims of this very, very, very just unfortunate situation.
To find themselves in, and nobody wants to be abused. They really
Nobody, and nobody deserves it.
don't. No.
Nobody.
And we also offer in our program now triple P parenting programs for children. We work with DSS on those programs. We can do some substance abuse stuff in our counties. We've got a couple of people that can do that now. So we do have different programs that we offer that we like to help the public with, and we are quite happy to go into churches or programs, any kind of groups that people have that would like to hear a program or have a PowerPoint or program on domestic violence. I'll be glad. You just tell me where to come and how long you want it to be, and we'll adapt it to your needs. And I would love to come out and do some programs for you.
Oh, great.
I'll
Well,
be happy
thank
to do
you.
that. Just let me know when and where, and how long, so I don't overtalk.
No worries. This is so great. Thank you so much for coming today and telling us about what you do at the Center for Family Violence Prevention. Thank you for providing us with that information about domestic violence, because it's definitely something that we need to learn more
It
about.
truly is.
So that we can help each other work through this. And of course, thank you as well for working with those victims as advocates and as counselors. And thank you again for being a resource to the community. So as she mentioned, you can reach out to her anytime. Until next time, take care.